With all of the negative headlines dominating the news these days, it can be difficult to spot signs of progress. What makes you optimistic about the future? Response 1.
The plummeting price of solar and wind energy. Edit, thanks for the gold. I will be investing it in solar.
Absolute upvote. In Australia there has been incredible penetration of solar power in the last 10 years, all driven by the economics of solar power, in the last 10 years. Well, 2018 is even better than the last 10 years in terms of prices, payoff periods, and sales of solar panels have reflected that. People are installing their panels en masse with zero subsidies. Businesses big and small, covering their roofs. It is so crazy, there may be a glut of power in SA when the sun shines, at least. Edit, SA equals South Australia, thanks you Royal Hines, in as few as 5 years' time, considering the rate of growth. On one Sunday, a few months ago, quote, 50% of all power in SA was generated by rooftop solar alone. That's not even including wind and other large-scale renewables. We don't have hydro in SA. The magic of all this is that it only took a few years of government investment. The market has ramped up, partly and thanks to those subsidies. We are reaping benefits, and we will be for years to come.
Quote, government investment. Cries in American.
Don't cry too much, the federal government is still trying to peddle clean coal.
Quote, the federal government is still trying to peddle clean coal. Please tell me this is a joke.
It is not.
I mean it is a joke, but it's also not a joke.
Response 2.
I mean, I haven't heard much about ISIS recently. That's gotta be a good sign.
They no longer control anything meaningful anymore, they're just your garden variety terrorist group now.
Why do we even have that garden?
In the analogy, the garden is our lives, ISIS are the garden variety weeds. If we give up the garden to the weeds, then they've won.
This analogy was much more accurate than I first expected when I started reading it. Well done. I'm really impressed.
I'll see you at the Aeolian.
Unexpected Kavathi.
Response 3.
Holy fuck, this post was made 7 minutes ago and already has 300 comments. But anyway, every day we get closer and closer to a cure for cancer. My mum told me about her diagnosis on Sunday. Both of her parents died of cancer too, 12 years apart. Hopefully in the near future, it's something we won't have to worry about.
It's because Appa's Bill Gates. Best of luck to your mum.
Ah, didn't even see that. And thank you. It's looking hopeful, they've caught it very early.
That's good to hear. Wishing her all the best. Smiley face. Early diagnosis is one of the best scenarios when it comes to cancer in most cases.
Sarah is always so wholesome.
Nah, it's her shtick to sell more of her porn.
LMAO who TF buys porn.
Response 4.
That we're almost at the point where we get artificial organs. I could use a kidney. Edit, guys, thanks a lot for your support, understanding and most of all the selfless offers you've made, Bellita kidney or info. I love you all. Edit 2, I wish I could share some resources on how to be a living donor. If someone could help me in that front so I could share it here. I'm not from the States and I don't know where to start. This is the most humbling experience I've had on Reddit yet. Edit 3, thanks to you Ragnarokis for this resource on living donation. And to you Tambourine Time for this other resource. Please, if you're thinking of donating, have a look at these resources.
I'ma get some laser eyes.
I'ma be a repo man.
Zydrate comes in a little glass vial. Edit, oh wow, my first gold ever. Oh thank you kind stranger.
And the little glass vial goes into the gun like a battery. Musical notes.
And the Zydrate gun goes somewhere against your anatomy.
And when the gun goes off, it sparks, and you're ready for surgery.
Response 5.
1. Since 1990 the number of children who die before their 5th birthday has been cut in half, saving 122 million young lives. 2. In the same period, the fraction of people living in extreme poverty has gone from 1/3 to 1/10. 3. More than 90% of children now attend primary school worldwide. 4. Women now make up more than 1/5 of members of parliaments around the world. 5. Workplace and road safety in the US has risen dramatically since our grandparents' time. Edit, I stole these from this article entitled Bill Gates. Here are 5 reasons to be optimistic about 2018. This has probably been my finest moment this year.
You just gave Bill Gates an answer from Bill Gates.
It's an amazing world we live in. ISNT it.
Response 6.
The possible return of the American chestnut tree. Fast-growing, rot-resistant and, perhaps most important, it produces enough calories from the nuts to feed a population. Edit. It turned out that someone from WBUR in Boston saw the interest in this post and wrote an article and made a podcast about it. It's very good. That old chestnut.
The death of the American chestnut is also partially responsible for the severity with which the Great Depression struck Appalachia. Chestnuts were a primary food supply for backup reserves in the form of herds of pigs that were allowed free roam. The pigs could be sold or slaughtered to keep families afloat during hard times. The disappearance of the chestnuts killed the viability of the pig herds, causing the economic failsafe to collapse ecologically at the same time that the Great Depression made monetary reserves worthless.
This sounds like a dissertation.
Seriously, this is amazing.
Response 7.
All 7 of my honeybee colonies are currently surviving the winter, and today they're bringing in the first pollen of the year. Edit. Also, please support native bees. For why and how at home, check out Bringing Nature Home by Douglas Tallamy, as well as butterflies like the monarch, and bats.
Yay, go bees.
People drastically underestimate how much we should be saying, go bees, fuck.
Response 8.
Advancements in medicine and gene therapy. The CRISPR technology has me very excited. Also, the James Webb Space Telescope is going to bring about many new discoveries.
It feels like we haven't had a huge discovery recently. Hopefully we get something big within a decade or so. Edit. As people have pointed out, we have made some significant discoveries recently.
IDK man, evidence of the Higgs boson and the gravitational wave detection from LIGO were both pretty big news.
While true, those discoveries don't result in any changes to the everyday lives of your average person. Things like CRISPR have that potential.
Not yet. Don't forget that for a while after the harnessing of electricity, no one could think of anything better to do with it than party tricks and such.
I have a few friends in the LEGO collaboration that I partied with, now I want them to do gravitational wave party tricks.
Good God, that would be amazing.
Response 9.
The fact that despite the news the world has never been safer or healthier than this, and it will likely continue like this.
This reminds me of the misleading statistic that more and more people are dying of cancer every year, only cause they're not dying of other stuff like minor illnesses, violence, etc. Life expectancy and general health will shoot up tremendously if we can find a more reliable cure for cancer. This'll sound really cold, but a doctor friend once pointed out to me that the rise of cancer deaths in the 20th century was an indicator of the great progress we've made in treating infectious diseases through antibiotics, vaccination and sanitation. People get cancer because they now live long enough to get it. If you look at the causes of death in the early 20th century, here, scroll to the end of the document, it's always pneumonia, influenza and tuberculosis as the top killers.
Quote, people get cancer because they now live long enough to get it. This blew my mind, but it all makes so much more sense to me now.
Similarly, when helmets were made standard issue in WW1, there was a drastic rise in head injuries. Because the only other alternative to getting injured when a piece of shrapnel or bullet hits you in the head is a lot less desirable.
Similarly, in WW1 or 2, I can't remember, they were trying to armor planes against bullets. When deciding where to put more armor, they looked at where the planes coming back were getting hit, and were gonna build there. Then, some smart-ass said wait. Put the armor everywhere else. And he was right. Because the planes that made it back could obviously survive the hits. The ones that didn't make it back, would have been hit elsewhere.
Deleted.
Response 10.
I'm reminded of Sam's speech to Frodo in Osgiliath in The Two Towers. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. Because they were holding on to something, that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it's worth fighting for.
Rewatched LOTR trilogy last weekend and those movies are full of great scenes and quotes. I love those movies. I loved that Moria scene, many that live deserve death. And some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Followed by F. I wish none of this had happened. G. So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. Quote, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. I love listening to this quote because I always immediately go, and I now decide to spend the next 9 hours of my time watching the rest of the trilogy on a TV screen.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, whenever I feel down, I remember that I literally live better than many kings of the past. They might have had massive political and financial power, but they didn't have hot water and plumbing, air conditioning, fridges and microwaves. They didn't have Netflix or video games or VR. My life is good and I plan to be lazy as shit and enjoy the fruits of humanity's collective effort.
Response 11.
Advancements in health studies and science for health has improved living conditions tenfold and continue to do so. So that makes me pretty optimistic.
No one lives forever, no one. But with advances in modern science and my high-level income, it's not crazy to think I can live to be 245, maybe 300. ETA, this is a quote from Talladega Nights. I'm not being serious, smiley face.
They say the first human who will live to 150 has already been born. I believe I am that human. Edit, holy shit. I just realized Bill Gates was the one who asked this question. Thanks Bill, for all the karma.
Ann Perkins, right finger, right finger.
Ann Perkins. April Ludgate. Literally two of my favorite people on earth.
Literally.